This is the Floridaville. Get to know the people behind the Florida names you know. I'm your host, Rosanna Catalano. On this episode, we get to know Heather Geronemus. She's a public relations expert for a technology firm in South Florida. Her firm has made the Fortune's 100 Best Companies to Work For list 9 years in a row. Heather also works tirelessly for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD. She is currently serving as the chair of the 10th annual Walk Like Mad and Mad Dash Fort Lauderdale. We are recording today's episode remotely. I'm in my home in Tallahassee, Florida, and Heather joins us remotely from her home in Fort Lauderdale. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here with you.
You are the director of public relations and corporate social responsibility for Ultimate Software. Tell us what that entails.
A lot of hours. No, I'm kidding. I get the pleasure of representing the most amazing company. So Ultimate has been here in South Florida for 30 years. We were founded by an amazing man named Scott Shear, who founded the company on the basis of taking care of employees, which is not the way most companies start. Most companies start with figuring out how to make a profit. And Scott started the company with the industry in mind. So we're in the HR and payroll software industry. But he really decided from the beginning that the company was there to take care of the employees, and then the employees then are in charge of taking care of the product and making sure that the company is profitable. And then the community piece is really amazing because from the very, very beginning, we gave to our community. And I've lived in this community for a long time, back and forth between here and New York, but I've been part of this community forever, really. And I myself am very philanthropic outside of Ultimate, but I never imagined that I'd work for a company that matched my commitment to the community. And, we started out before we were even making a profit, we were giving a percentage of our revenue to the community. And to this day, we give the same percentage, but obviously we've grown much more successful in 30 years. So we're able to serve this community, our country, and really we respond to crises all over the world. So I get to know a lot of really amazing nonprofit professionals, a lot of great organizations. We're expanding those organizations every day as we deal with different things in our, in the world, like coronavirus and the racial injustice issues that we're going through. So I get to learn along with everyone really about these issues and what the best organizations are to tackle them. And then we get to partner with them, make financial contributions, but also engage our employees in hands-on volunteer opportunities when we can do that. Right now we're all at home. So we're doing a lot of virtual volunteering, but really that's the short answer. I think that was short.
So you've been at Ultimate Software for about a decade now.
Wow.
Tell us where you started within the company and how did you get the job?
So actually, I talked about Scott Shear, our CEO. I met him at a social event and immediately just knew he was the kindest, actually quietest person I've ever met. When someone said he was the CEO of Ultimate Software, I didn't have a real frame of reference. I wasn't in the HR industry, and I just thought he was like the most engaging, kind person. So I got to know him and his family, and one day really bonded over my love of the community and his passion for the community. And one day he said, that he wanted me to come work for Ultimate. And I started in a marketing role attached to a sales team in the Northeast. I really had designs on going back up there, and still, I might still leave. Who knows? but I have the best of both worlds. In a normal time, I'm back and forth to New York as much as I possibly can be, and I get to live here and be a part of this amazing community with this amazing company. But yeah, I kind of took myself on a marketing development program of my own. It's something that we do now. People can experience all aspects of our marketing department, but we didn't have it formalized then, but I got to experience a lot of different opportunities in marketing, our inside sales team, our events team, and I came to the public relations team more than halfway through, about 5 years ago, and started to build this really incredible team of professionals that I get to lead, that help get our message out, tell our customer stories, and then of course lead our philanthropic efforts. So it's a really big honor to do that for this company.
What got you interested in public relations?
So my degree is in marketing, and in a sense, I've always been in some sort of PR. When I was in high school, I was always leading a group of people, using my voice to get to coalesce people around a cause or something that was important to me. I've been a lifelong volunteer, not just recently, as you referenced with MAD. So I've always kind of been, I've always leaned to that. I actually came to it kind of backwards in that I built Walk Like Mad and Mad Dash Fort Lauderdale, which you said is in its 10th year also. I built it with by using PR, by using social media. We didn't have any money. We hadn't raised any money in Broward County. It was the first fundraiser in Broward County for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So I built it using PR. So I had no idea that I knew how to pitch media stories until I actually had to call NBC6 and try to get on their air to get people to come to a walk. So I kind of came to what I do for my profession via my volunteer life. So that's an amazing story.
That is an amazing story. So we're going to take a real quick commercial break here, and we'll come back and ask you more.
Great.
This episode of The Floridaville is brought to you by Rocket Ship Consultants. Let us help you launch your career, your business, your podcast, or your live stream. Follow us on Facebook and on Instagram, and visit our website at www.rocketshipconsultants.com.
Heather, I know you're very involved with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, in South Florida and also nationally. Can you describe your involvement with MAD to all of us?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm involved both locally and nationally. I founded an event here in South Florida. And the reason that I did that is because I lost my father to a drunk driver in 2009. He was crossing the street on foot after giving a speech at a medical conference dinner with some of his colleagues down in Brickell. So, everyone knows that area, on a Saturday night, walking across the street, and he was struck and killed by a drunk driver that blew a red light and never even stopped. And, that person was apprehended. But that night my life changed forever. I wasn't a person, I was old enough that I wasn't going home to where my dad was. So it wasn't something that immediately resonated with me. It was kind of surreal for a long time. But when it did hit me, that my dad was gone and that I was going through this very traumatic loss, with no, there's no right way to lose a person, but there's certainly a different set of circumstances when someone is killed, and then you also all of a sudden become a victim of a crime. And one of the main things that Mothers Against Drunk Driving does is support victims. We support victims 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, through our hotline, through a Facebook page, a Facebook closed victim group, and then through in-person support. And I had a series of voicemails on my phone from a woman who reached out to me from MAD, who was a victim advocate. And when I finally kind of reconciled with the fact that I was a victim of something and that I needed the help, I found that voicemail on my cell phone, and I called this woman, Nancy, and I talked to her for over an hour. And I can still remember what car I was driving and where the parking lot I pulled into to have that conversation. And it just really stayed with me that if I had only had that call with her and I never called back, just I had gotten the resources and she had sent me the stuff that I needed, the very tactical things that I needed, that would have been okay. This woman who was a complete stranger called me and supported me. It turned out that I leaned on her a lot more than that, for an entire year going through the process of, the trial for the person that killed my father, and seeing that person sentenced and being, 6 feet away from him, not things that most normal people are equipped for. So I was really, really lucky to have Nancy and stand there and really hold my hand while I gave a victim statement in front of a court full of media, because my father was relatively well known. So the case was very public. And even if that had been the end, if that had been the last time that I dealt with MAD, that would have been okay, because that's what we do. We support people when they need it the most. But I kind of took a look at the landscape after that happened. But the person was sentenced before the holidays. So, spend holidays with your family. And now our family is a lot different. And after kind of like all of that resonated, I looked around and I thought, like, why aren't we doing anything to prevent this on the front end? I go to hundreds of charity events a year. I'm very, very lucky to do that. But why wasn't there a charity event for MAD? Why weren't we talking about it? Where was the conversation? Because I grew up in this area and the conversation was happening. When I learned to drive, I knew that drinking and driving wasn't okay. But that wasn't the conversation that was happening about a decade ago. So I joined forces with MAD on the front end, trying to create a lot of noise and create a big event and raise money so that we could talk about ending drunk driving before tragedy occurs. I didn't want other people to have to be in my position. So that's really how Walk Like Mad and Mad Dash Fort Lauderdale got started about a year after the death of my father. And, it turned out to be, or it is still, one of the largest and the fastest growing fundraisers for Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the country. So we've really made a lot of progress, and it's not just the money. I mean, the money is certainly important, particularly now for nonprofits, but bringing together children and families and police officers and elected officials and corporations on that day, but all year round, and having this discussion and raising the issue and changing people's perspectives, even if you just, you're a person that goes out to dinner and thinks it's okay to drink with dinner, and to some extent it is. I'm not a prohibitionist by any means, but just making, second guessing yourself, instead making a plan. When your plans include alcohol, just always making sure that they include a safe way home instead of taking chances. I can't tell you how many people, just in interactions like this, but like also just by taking the stage that day or going on the air, radio or TV, tell me that they made safer decisions because of hearing a speech or going to the event or participating in it. And then we have kids that have participated. I have an 8-year-old in my life, not my 8-year-old. I have an 8-year-old in my life who's participated in every Walk Like Mad since she's been alive. So I know that in her school, when it comes time for her to drive, she will absolutely be a leader and say, that's not okay. You can't do that to her, when her peers are about to make bad decisions. So it's really, it's been a movement, and I was lucky enough to be elected to the National Board of Directors of MAD. So there are 16 of us that lead the organization nationally, and these crazy people actually elected me their chair this year. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So I get to, at the highest level, lead the strategy of the organization and work with the CEO. We've gotten in 40 years, which MAD is 40 years old. In 40 years, we got to a very good number. We're down, we cut drunk driving deaths in half. But, we still lose 11,000 people in this country every year, and 300,000 people are injured. So it's not enough. Like, we're not done yet. So we kind of have to, I get the pleasure of leading the organization and figuring out how we're going to close that gap, because the 10,000 to 11,000 number has been the same for the last decade.
The work you do is incredibly important. This is 100% preventable. I used to prosecute actually down there in Fort Lauderdale DUIs when I first started my legal career. So it's absolutely something that's 100% preventable. So I'm glad to see that you're doing this work. Did you have experience in fundraising before you got involved with MAD?
Ironically, no. I never asked anybody for money other than jump rope for heart when I was in school, or a 5K, or, a walk event. I've been a volunteer since I can remember. My mother is an avid volunteer. She actually, not on a volunteer basis as her job, she wrote the grants for the first treatment center for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society in the country. So I grew up watching her, serve on boards and committees. Some of my earliest memories are volunteering, but I never raised money. I never, set out to put on an event that raises over $250,000, which is what our event has grown to here in South Florida. I never thought that I would go to, travel around the country to sit with the CEO of MAD and talk to the NFL and Uber and different organizations about really large scale contracts, which is a little bit different than asking your parents to give you money. So, but I think that in anything that anyone that's listening, like when you're passionate about something and you understand what the actual difference that you can make, you turn out to have no fear about asking for money. Like when they asked me to be the chair of this event, I kind of said, no, I can't do that. Like, how could I do that? How am I going to raise all that money? And then I just kind of, made a list of people I could ask and just started asking. And really, I've gotten a few no's over the years, but not that many.
That's incredible. Share with us what your dad was like. What's your favorite memory with him?
So my dad was a physician here in Broward, and my parents were divorced. So I did get a lot of one-on-one time with each parent. And one of my favorite things to do with my dad, which happened to be like one of the things we actually did on the weekends, was I would go on rounds with him. And he was a person who, through his passion for science and patients, really just touched everyone around him in a much different way than I engage with people, but also similar. So, my dad obviously could have a very interesting scientific discussion with folks that I could never, ever have because I'm in public relations. But he really was a person who people respected and loved. And you could just tell that when he walked into a room. And my mother is also like that. And I kind of got the best of all of my parents. Both of them are much, much smarter than me. But I got their passion and their outgoing personalities. And so I really did. I mean, it's a weird thing to say, but I really did love going on rounds with my dad. I used to have, ICU nurses would have coloring books for me and stuff like that because I kind of spent a lot of time there. But those are fun, long time memories.
Those are very special memories.
Yeah,
so where did you grow up?
I grew up in Plantation. I went to Pinecrest in Fort Lauderdale. I still serve this school. On the board of directors there, and very, very fortunate to have the best of South Florida in terms of education. And volunteered there at Pinecrest and started really honing my passion for the community and leadership there. And so I just really I didn't really expect to be back here because I left for NYU. But lots of things brought me back, particularly family, after the big tragedy that my family experienced.
What was your major at NYU?
So I majored in marketing and international business. So I was always going to be in some related field. I don't think that I ever would have thought that I was going to be in technology because, obviously we had some trouble with me figuring out how to get onto this program today. So, I'm very, very fortunate that I found this job at this company because it's an organization where the passion matches mine, even though if I went into the building that houses our developers, they'd probably say, please leave.
So, what was your first job out of college?
So right out of college, I worked at Bloomberg in New York. The way that you got into their marketing and sales organization was going through a product training and kind of being on the front lines of customer support because you learned about the product. I had interned there, so it wasn't, it was kind of a straight shot into the role. Another amazing company with an amazing leader. At the time, Mike Bloomberg was there. It was before he ran for mayor, and he was a very hands-on leader. I think one of the first days that I was there, I rode up in an elevator with him and he asked me who I was and what I did. And I really didn't know yet. So that was kind of embarrassing, but it was so I really kind of, again, got to go in there and learn all about a company and another great philanthropic organization. Got to go to some of the most amazing philanthropic events in New York because of my time at Bloomberg. So a lot of fun. And I had a lot of different marketing roles until I kind of found the right one where I am now. But that's kind of, it's in marketing you could work in any company you want, right? Almost every company has a marketing department, or I hope they do.
If they want to keep in business.
Exactly. Well, actually, I was reading that today in the Wall Street Journal, Goldman Sachs hired their first CMO, and I thought that's strange. How is that your first CMO? But I'm sure that they had another marketing function. They just didn't call it chief marketing officer because that would be weird.
So what was a valuable lesson you learned at that first job that is still valuable to you today?
So I think that this, and I don't know if I learned it there or if I learned it from my parents, but really the most important thing is treating everyone with kindness and respect. I think that from we had these like amazing folks that were by where we scanned our badges, and that's also where our coat room was, because I was in New York and we had to wear coats, and just knowing those people by name and asking them about their kids, and it was a meaningful thing to them. And like when my grandma would come visit me at work, they would know her name, and that was a meaningful thing to her. And so I think that's something that I think I picked up there, but I probably picked up much earlier in life, just the importance of really treating everyone with respect. It doesn't matter what anyone's position in life is. It's just everyone really deserves an equal shot. And it's just, and you see people who disregard people, and that's something that really turns me off. And I think that like in that like that badge thing with the coat check right there, like I would witness it a lot. But that's something that has, I think, really just carried through my entire life, whether we're at Broward Partnership for the Homeless, and an organization that I volunteer at, and I just go sit with folks and learn their stories, whether they're clients or people that work there. It doesn't matter. Everyone has an interesting story, and everyone has has an important voice. And so I think that that's a very important lesson for anyone in any field and anything that you're doing.
So, it seems that philanthropy is very important to you. What other charities are you working with in your community?
So many. I should have printed out a list. So I actively participate in several boards. I'm the board chair as of like next Wednesday. I will be the board chair of the Broward Sheriff's Foundation. The foundation works in a number of ways to support our community in partnership with the Sheriff's Office. We support fallen heroes. We do anti-terrorism efforts, and then also community outreach. And I really do think that's an important aspect of what we do. It really dovetails with my work with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So I spend a lot of time with law enforcement, and creating those positive first interactions with law enforcement is really important. And that's a lot of what we do with the Sheriff's Foundation. I also serve on the local board, the Florida Board of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. That's an organization that I came to through Ultimate, but then I met the families and these kids who are struggling, but really surviving more so than ever before. And one of my mentors, Peter Hodge, who's a CF dad, came to me and asked me to serve on the board. And again, like when somebody with passion that knows that something will help them, or someone that's important to them comes to you, you just can't say no. So that's how I got to cystic fibrosis. And many other organizations that I get to work with, about 200 nonprofits a year through Ultimate, and I do get to serve on some committees and boards. But I will say that my time at the national level with MAD is really my primary focus right now. But we get to do a lot of tremendous things. Just last week, Ultimate and our marketing department did a car parade for a child whose wish has been put on hold through Make-A-Wish. Not an organization that I serve on a board of directors of, but one that I've been very high touch with in the last few years because of Ultimate. And just to see this child who's struggling with leukemia in our community light up because he loves dinosaurs, and we all decorated our cars with dinosaurs, it's really something special. So every organization that I get to work with kind of brings a unique perspective. I get to meet different people, learn about different experiences. So the list goes on and on. I don't think we have all that much time.
That's incredibly rewarding. So you're very successful in public relations and in what you do. What advice would you give to somebody that's interested in this line of work?
So it's interesting with public relations, is ever changing because the forms of media are changing. So like this podcast, when I got into PR, people weren't podcasting or live casting anything, So I think, and the newsrooms are dwindling, and news is more sensational than ever. So really, I think it's a line of work that's not maybe as sexy as people think it is. It's still, something where you need to learn your product, know your audience, know the people that care about your work or will care about your work. And just like anything else in life, I think you asked me about my lesson from my first job, and which was really boiled down to relationships. And what I talked to you about my dad, it was boiled down to relationships. So everything in life, whatever field you're in, unless you're like a mortician, I think, probably boils down to relationships. So I think that really, but PR, no question, being able to be a trusted source, being able to not only ask people for help, but to help other people is really important, whether it's in philanthropy or public relations.
If people wanted to give to MAD, where should they go?
Easy. MAD.org is our national site. If people are interested in Walk Like Mad and Mad-Fort Lauderdale, it's walklikeMad.org/Fort Lauderdale. We do have an event that was postponed because it was supposed to be right when the pandemic hit, and we're hoping to be able to put it on in the fall. So not only to give, but also to find out about how to participate when we can participate together in person would be walklikeMad.org/Fort Lauderdale.
So we like to end our show with 7 questions by asking our guests the same 7 questions.
Okay.
What would people be surprised to know about you?
So I don't find it surprising, but anytime I tell people this, I trained to be a professional ballet dancer. That's when I left South Florida, that was what I was doing. I was going to NYU, and then I also studied at the Joffrey Ballet School. So that was my goal in life. I hurt my back, so I couldn't do that, and here I am.
So when you have guests in town, what is your favorite place to take them?
So this is so gut-wrenching because it's closed now, but I love to take people to the Broward Center. It's really my favorite place. I think we're so lucky to have the Broward Center because when I was growing up here, we didn't have the Broward Center. We did have Parker Playhouse, and Broward Center, I think, was built when I was a child, but I really remember the first performance I went to there, and it's another organization that I'm very involved in. I ran their Young Professionals organization for a couple of years. So that's one of my favorite places. I think people are often surprised because most of my people come from New York. So people are often surprised that we have such a thriving art scene here. So
that's incredible. So when I was in high school there, I was involved with the Broward Center. They called us, I think, Youth Pacers, I think was the group that we were involved, and we worked with them, giving them advice how students would be involved. So the world is very small. The world is very small.
It is.
So what is the name of a book you recently read that you could not put down, or a television show that you are binge watching?
So I'm actually in the process of reading a book called The Savvy Ally. It was we have a book club at Ultimate, and this is with our Pride group. And it's really a very eye-opening book about how to be an ally. It's really directed at the LGBTQI community, but I think given everything that's going on, just raising your awareness of really being inclusive of all people is so important right now. So that's what I'm plowing through right now.
Among your close family and friends, what are you best known for?
Talking. That's my thing. Apparently, I talk a lot.
If you have a nickname, who gave it to you?
I don't have a nickname, which is funny because I'm a Heather, and I won't say when I was born, but when I was born, a lot of people were named Heather. It was a very popular name, but everyone else was always Heather something, and I was always just Heather. So I'm very proud that I don't actually have a nickname.
If you knew you could not fail, what would you attempt?
Oh, Broadway for sure, but I can't sing at all.
You could have your debut here right now if you'd like.
No. Nobody wants to. You actually want your people to continue to tune in. So we'll just.
What are the top 3 things you love about living in Florida?
Oh, that's a great question. So I love my proximity to my family. So my mom is here and my grandma's here, and these are my people. So it's really unfortunate right now because I haven't seen my grandma since the end of February because I traveled in the first 2 weeks of March. And then when I got back, lockdown. So she's 98, which she'll kill me for saying publicly, but we are not allowing her to have any visitors. So that's a little bit hard right now, but definitely being close to my grandma. The number 2 is the philanthropic scene is really something special here. There are There are so many nonprofits in need, especially now, and there are so many people and corporations that take the time to really invest and try to find solutions to our community's problems. So I think that that is, one of the most important things. And this like emerging, kind of growing art scene that we have, the Broward Center first example, but Wynwood and all these things that are coming up. It's a lot of fun to kind of see it emerge as another epicenter for art and culture.
Heather, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you here today. Thank you for being on this episode.
Thank you so much.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast channel on YouTube. You can also subscribe to all of our podcast listening platforms like iTunes and Spotify. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Visit our website to see some extras on Heather and to get her contact information. Our live stream director for this episode and our audio editor for this podcast episode is Joy Tootle with Rocket Ship Consultants. If you're interested in starting a live stream or podcast, contact Joy at joy@rocketshipconsultants.com. Thanks for listening.